Well, glad to start off the news report again today, the world edition, seeing what's happening in the world and all of that. In a little bit, I'll be bringing on Chris, and we'll be talking about a variety of things. And who knows, Nick Palveda will probably jump into the conversation as well. And then we'll see what other people are going to pop in to the world also and see what is happening in their world. Right now, the weather's looking lovely here in Durham, North Carolina, and all of that. So that is one of the things that is going on. And of course, a lot of people are paying attention to the mask mandates and other things that are happening. And of course, as we reported yesterday, folks are saying that the pandemic is winding down and all of that, at least here in the United States. And all along those lines, I guess we're getting close to herd immunity and things in that relationship. But we do know that other parts of the world, including China, things are not going as well. They might even be facing lockdowns and things in that sense. But when it comes to Russia and the Ukraine, and this is where I'm going to bring in Chris, and I've got some other stories from around the globe because there are other places of the world that are also being hot spots as well. But apparently, Russia is exerting intense fire along a 300-mile battlefront in Ukraine's east. The embattled nation's military said Thursday as the head of the United Nations landed in Kiev for a high-profile visit amid escalating threats by Moscow to cut off energy supplies to more European countries. Ukraine said it intercepted attacks in the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions, while Russia's defense minister made unverified claims that it had struck overnight at military targets in Barvikov and Ivanivka, settlements in the Kharkiv region, which has been the site of near constant shelling over more than 2 months of war. The growing Russian assault now shifted away from Kiev as Moscow tries to secure a large swath of land across southern and eastern Ukraine comes as hostilities reach new levels not only on the ground but diplomatically. Russia under economic sanctions by dozens of nations and facing a U.S.-led partnership of more than 40 countries that vowed this week to increase arms supplies to Ukraine, has suggested it may cut off gas exports to more states after suspending shipments to Poland and Bulgaria on Wednesday. In an overnight address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky echoed cries of Russian blackmail against European nations, which together with the U.S. have sent billions of dollars of weaponry and aid to humanitarian groups and frontline fighters to Ukraine. Moscow is just waiting for the moment when one or another trade area can be used to blackmail Europeans politically or to strengthen Russia's military machine, which sees a united Europe as a target, Zelensky said. And ahead of a meeting with Ukrainian leader Thursday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited the war-torn town of Borodanka outside Kiev, described the war as an absurdity in the 21st century. So we're going to see more of how this goes and all along those lines. But I did have a question based on what I had heard, so I'm going to bring Chris in and see what he's got to say about all of these things that are happening in our world and all of that. But one of the things that I had heard was there is a big date, and I know we've been looking at dates. One date went by that you had predicted and everything, but there's another date coming up, which I believe is May 9th. And some
Yes.
people are speculating that that might be when the war ends, but it will not end without a divided Ukraine. Because one of the things that I was hearing was that might be when some of these places that quote unquote have fallen, that Putin puts in the quote unquote puppet governments and all of that, and then he declares it a victory because we have this kind of divided Ukraine. I know at one point you were talking about like maybe an East and West Ukraine, but it sounds like he wants several different provinces and things along those lines, and that might be what he uses to declare his victory. He got these different puppet governments in whatever parts of Ukraine he can capture and supposedly hold on to, that he was then say is a victory for those folks in the Russia as they maybe are trying to work on a new Soviet Union or something along those lines. But what is your thoughts about this theory that I heard yesterday?
Oh, so well, thanks, Mark. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
First of all, I wanted to straighten out something. I had a friend of mine. I am not kidding either. I had a friend of mine call me and he goes, "Did you hear what RuPaul said the other day?" And I said, "RuPaul, the drag queen?" He goes, "Yeah, the senator." I said, "No, that's Ron Paul.
Right.
Ron Paul, not RuPaul. That's
No,
a
not
whole
RuPaul.
different deal." It's like, it amazes me sometimes how people, it's just, anyways, I just want to straighten that out. It wasn't RuPaul, it was Ron Paul.
Rand Paul.
Anyways, or Rand Paul. So just to let you know, so to get to your question, I I always felt that Ukraine was gonna be able to push the Russians back and be able to get most of their country back, but to
Mhm.
get it all back, I think is going to be a stretch. So I think, in fact, I heard a general today, Major General out of West Point, state that he thought that basically what'll happen is that's exactly what'll happen. Mark, is that they'll split the country. It's kind
And
of
that's
like
and that's now that I think about it, that's actually where I got that from because I got it from a general that you probably served under because I think that I had read that under a report that Petronas, I believe it is, was that famous general and everything that he had put out and everything. So I
yeah
know he was one of the generals and he was speculating on what this whole thing would look like. And that was one of the things that he came up with was that there might be a divided and not just a east and west, but multiple divisions within Ukraine. I'm gonna bring Sasha into the conversation and see what he's
yeah.
got to say about this because I
I
know that
mean,
it was
that's not optimum for the Ukrainians.
right.
I mean, but at this point, the UN went to visit Putin, and now they're going to visit Zelensky. And I think that the UN, in their ultimate knowledge of nothing, is going to sit there and say, "Hey, we can stop this bloodshed, and we can do whatever if we can, if we can just, if you guys would just get along, and Ukraine, you give part of your country to Russia, and Russia will take the Donetsk region and Luhansk region, and that'll be okay. Then you'll be done. Then there won't be any problems, and Putin can have a victory, and you can go back to being Ukraine or West Ukraine or whatever you're gonna do." And we've done this. We've done this before. When Stalin met with Truman, when they met at the Yalta conference, and they split up basically the world. It's never a clean thing. It's never a clean thing. So I don't know if the Ukrainians will accept that. I think the Ukrainians might say, no, no, the war will stop when we have our whole country reunited and Russia is out of the entire country. And if they take that stance, then there's going to be more bloodshed, of course. But I think Russia, as Sasha says over and over again, and I totally agree with him, you have to stand up to a bully, and you have to show him or her that you're not going to take it. And let me tell you something. They're already putting munitions on Russian targets in Russia. I mean, now that intelligence will never confirm that, but I'm telling you, these explosions don't happen coincidentally in different cities. So they're hitting Russian targets in Russia. I mean, and that's why Putin's all pissed off. He's sitting there saying, "Look, U.S. is supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine is hitting Russia. By God, I'm going to have lightning fast responses." Really? You're a jerk. You sit there and you invade a sovereign country, and now you're going to have lightning fast responses to what? So it's and they were talking about nuclear weapons on the hypersonic missiles. And I'm sorry, but I've never seen proof that they have hypersonic missiles. Never. I've never seen honest to God proof. This is all conjecture. So this is a Russian propaganda bullcrap thing that they're saying we got hypersonic missiles and we're going to put nuclear weapons on them. Really? Because the minute they launch and the minute they get to speed, they're going to detonate. So that means you're going to have a nuclear explosion over your country, Russia, before it even gets to the target. So yeah, you go ahead and do that. So I really, and Sasha, please, I'd like to hear your take on this, because I'm telling you right now, I don't think Ukraine is going to put up with, yeah, we'll slice up our country to suit the UN and Russia. But I mean, that's up to you.
It's also simple. Look, you can create any deals, agreements between US and UK and Russia and China and Japan and Indonesia and Antarctica and just anything what you want. But Ukraine is not going to go for any of these deals.
Yep.
Ukraine wants to free its country from the invaders, and most likely they will go after Moscow. They will definitely have to defeat this evil empire. And this is much more evil than what Ronald Reagan dealt with USSR, because USSR basically, most of the times, they played by rules, a funny thing to say, where Putin is a pathological liar. He's a criminal. He's obeying no rules whatsoever. he is now destroying Ukraine and Ukrainian people. It's not a war. He's not fighting the Ukrainian army. He's not interested to fight Ukrainian army because he will get his nose blooded. He wants to kill as many civilians as possible. This is a genocide of, if there is such a thing as genocide in this world, that is one. There's nothing like that ever happened. You
I mean,
know,
yeah.
I've studied a lot of war history through all the centuries and different countries. The only what close comes to what Putin is doing right now is Genghis Khan. But even they, if city would give up and would not resist, he would spare all those people. He wouldn't just kill them. Right now, Russia is killing people who are trying to escape from places like Mariupol or so on. They are not in peace, and people are coming out with both hands up, indicating that they are not going to fight. They don't ask them anything. They just shoot them and kill all of them. That's what Russia is doing in 21st century. So that type of country, this type of leader, no one, whether it's west or east or north or south, cannot deal with. It's a menace. Now, finally, his nuclear bluff is being called. So the meeting in Ramstein in Germany just 2 days ago, I think it was General Austin who said that let's talk about the nuclear threat. What threat? What is that? The moment there is something coming, we have a specialized, a small nuclear device, but guess what? It has almost 100% precision. It goes right into the bunker, and we know where the bunker is, and it will explode right there. Stop, full stop, period, finish. All the nuclear garbage is out. It's been called. Look, after Russians lost their flagman ship, Moskva, and now, after they're taking beatings each and every way, after West and US openly support Ukraine, not with defensive, but the attacking weapons, Putin has all ammunition to use nuclear tactical device. What else to wait until Ukrainians will start taking over Moscow? Now, use it. Hey, he's not using it.
No.
He's scary about his bunker. So his bluff is called. Now, in conventional arms, if NATO and United States cannot defeat this ragtime army of rapists and murderers, then whom they can defeat then? They must right now, no peaceful negotiations of any kind, out. Go for Moscow. You have to now take Moscow. That's a goal. It's not just to defend Ukraine. No, nobody needs. So you defend Ukraine or you don't defend Ukraine. It's garbage. It's nothing.
You know what would be hilarious?
And expel all the army of Russians.
You sit back and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead. I'm sorry."
I'm just going to bring up some of the things because actually he was speaking yesterday. It was General Petraeus that brought up some interesting things. He actually called this the first war of the TikTok age because he was saying that ordinary citizens can upload and record the events. You can actually start to feel what war is like, and that's what he said about the war over there. He also said that he was very critical of Russia's strategy. He said they want to take the capital, Kiev, and topple the government. You know, we have a little experience in actual combat in real cities, Fallujah and Ramadi were some that he named, and he said there was no way they're going to. There's no way they're going to take Kiev, let alone control it. And he did say that the Russians ended up losing the Battle of Kiev, even though they've been training, and he put that in quotes, for it since seizing Crimea in 2014. And Petraeus says the Russians weren't training, as far as I'm concerned, they were going camping. There's been some criticism from Ukraine about the U.S. and Western allies' hesitancy to send certain weapons and munitions to that country. But Petraeus said in answer to the question, it's a problem of Eastern and Western Bloc systems. We can't give them our rockets. They have Eastern Bloc systems. We have combed Eastern Europe to find the systems the Ukrainians can use. We can say, hey, Czechs, if you give Ukraine S-300s, Russian-made anti-aircraft systems, we'll park Patriots in your backyard. And on other topics, including this whole thing about nuclear weapons, he says, I don't think the chances are really high. I still think that it is a threshold that if Putin crossed, he has a lot to lose. And then he made some comparisons about what was going on in this war and what happened in Afghanistan. Because he said Afghanistan could have turned out better. You have to protect the people. You can't do that with Delta Force or SEAL Team 6. That's not their purpose. You don't give away your plan at the negotiating table. Don't let them know a withdrawal date. And he did say, we are leading the world with sanctions. We are crushing the Russian economy. The challenge is sanctioning a country that provides goods and food and goods the world can't truly do without. And then as far as the flawed strategy, he says this shows how tough big operations are. There's a whole host of lessons. Logistics, they don't have a non-commissioned officer corps. Their command and control system keeps breaking down. That's why they keep losing generals. Now to come into Sasha, this is a question I had based on something that I read that he said, I think it was a couple of days ago and everything. It's what I brought up before bringing you up to Chris and everything. Apparently some of these generals in the U.S. are thinking that the Ukraine will not be divided into two, but that there will be some of these areas that are more under Russian control than others that he may declare as puppet governments and all of that, and that he may try to consider that his victory on May 9th. Is there any fear of yours, Sasha, that this could actually be something that happens, or do you think that not even those people in that part of the Ukraine will go for what he is probably going to propose, which is that these regions that are supposedly under Russian control become like part of this Russian expansion?
I have serious doubts that people who are talking about division of Ukraine are watching television or reading newspapers or in internet, and they probably they haven't been around for the last 2.5 months probably. Because Ukraine, every day, if you have to look at real shipments, not promises, not pledges, but real shipments of the most sophisticated Western uh, weapons for attack, not for defense anymore. There is nothing to be defend against. It's attacking weapons, very powerful. Ukrainians are very skillful to learn how to operate, and they're being trained in Poland, in UK, and US, by the way. So now the most skillful of them are teaching in Ukraine now their friends in army. Um, so it will be a situation where Russians will have to run for cover. I really don't understand how they're going to survive once the attack will start. The probable time for an attack is about a week, maybe 10 days. Maybe it will be a surprise to their intended celebration on May 9th. So it may actually happen on May 8th or 9th, who knows. And I have no doubts in my mind that Ukrainians will be victorious in their onslaught on Russians. And I don't understand what kind of division of Ukraine could be discussed right now. Ukrainian will be fight until the last soldier, until the last um, the ballot. And I really don't. Either Putin will take all country, and good luck to him, or he will be run out of Ukraine completely. There is no compromise. People, it's funny things. People are looking for compromise. Okay, so, okay, you'll take a little bit of this, and we'll take a little bit of that, and then you'll get that, and we'll get that. With whom? With Putin? I think I read somewhere commentaries that U.S. Has a decision what to do with Russia after the war will be over. Remember when Soviet Union fell apart at the end of 1991, there was a great help from the West and especially from US to help them with the economy because they were cold and hungry and no prospects whatsoever. And the West helped them great time to get on its feet. And what they are using now, all the Western help, all the money that they got from the West, to build a military to fight the West. That's their approach. That's where this society of criminals answered to help from the West. So this time it's going to be different. There will be no help
That's right.
to Russia. No more.
Yep.
No.
You're right, Sasha. I mean, I can tell you, at least from our standpoint, you can forget Russia.
Absolutely no
Okay,
help whatsoever.
I've kind of written the country off. I put it in the category of North Korea.
Absolutely.
I won't go
And
visit
much
it. I
worse.
won't have anything to do with it. I'm glad I had my 10 days in St. Petersburg
Yeah.
and got to see it. But until they change their government, forget it. There's no way an American can feel safe. I think the cruise ships are going to stop. Even if they go, the Americans aren't going to be on those cruise ships to St. Petersburg anymore because, frankly, Sasha, even after the war, you're not going to feel safe in a Putin Russia. Sorry. I mean, the guy is an obviously pathological liar. He lined up all those guys on the border saying, all his army, oh, I'm not going to invade. And then he invaded. So who can trust this guy? Then he just bombs indiscriminately. Well, can you go to this country and feel safe if you're an American? Absolutely not. So I think a post-war Russia, the Americans are going to shun completely. I mean, at least the West will. I don't know about the Europeans, but I can tell you the Americans, we don't need their garbage. I'm sorry. I tell the Chinese that too. I said, look, we don't need you guys. Now, we've made a mistake being dependent on your manufacturing, but generally, we don't need their stuff. But let me tell you what they come back with, because they do,
Nick, just really
they do
quickly.
support Russia. They come back with this, Chris. You say, well, a country can't invade another country. Well, look what the United States did to Iraq. We invaded them. We toppled over a government. So what they're saying, well, if the United States can do it, Russia should be able to do it too. That's what.
No. Where is US and where is Russia? How they can dare to compare themselves to US? It's just impossible. It's then any country, Zimbabwe can say, "Oh well, we will invade Ethiopia because US invaded Iraq." Come on, let's get realistic.
I am telling you, here's the Chinese position that I know of, to the extent you get anything from China. They go, United States invade Iraq. United States threw out a country. United States lied, saying there were weapons of mass destruction. Because of all that Russia should be allowed to.
No, absolutely no, because US is a Jupiter, okay? Whatever is allowed for Jupiter is not allowed to some stupid little animals. And I'll tell you what, but China will benefit from all that because
China always benefits if the West fights.
China will. And you know how
the thing is, they have no interest in being peacekeepers in this because
Nick, hold on a second. I got a couple of questions for you and everything. One,
here's what's going to happen.
One, you said that we can dismiss the Chinese, and the Chinese have a whole lot of people. I mean, what is it like?
No, I didn't say we can dismiss them. We should not be dependent on them.
Okay,
we don't need to be dependent on them.
Okay,
that's a whole different
China is going to benefit. Okay, so there is no use of Russia with all this wonderful culture of Tchaikovsky and Gogol and Dostoevsky or so on. These Russians today, they have nothing to do with the world culture of Russians of 19th century. They are different people, different material, different biological materials. They have nothing. It's all part of the world culture. And Russians, they don't even read. They don't even listen to the music of Tchaikovsky or even Rimsky-Korsakov or anybody else. So it's all out. So now this biomass has to govern by someone, and US and the West don't want to do that in any shape or form. So what they're going to do it, they will go to China and say, China, this is your little baby. Do whatever you want with that. Take its oil or its gas and whatever you can extract from there, take it, enjoy. But leave us alone. We don't want to do anything to do with this miserable country of miserable people.
Yeah, Well, I also agree with you, Sasha, that the rules of engagement for the United States is so different than the rules of engagement for Russians. In other words, we when we do go into a country, we are very careful in terms of making sure that people are treated properly. The Russians don't. They just like say, "Oh, let's go blow up this building. There's women and children. We don't give a rat's rear." They really don't. And so the thing is, they're definitely not the United States. What bothers me isn't Russia, because I agree with David Walker. They're not a superpower. What bothers me is China, because China actually does have a very large population. They do have nuclear weapons,
Mhm.
and frankly, they're very nationalistic in terms of they love China, and frankly, the ones I see don't like the West, and we treat them like they're wonderful, and I don't get it. We should have a big yellow flag with China, because we really need to sort out our relationship with China, because they gun for the United States
So
more
let me
than
get this right.
Russia
I
does.
just want to make sure I understand you, Nick, and everything, and make
Yeah,
sure that we're hearing correctly and everything. Because I have met a couple, not a lot, but I've met a couple just because I'm not that far from Duke, and we do know that there is
mhm.
a China-Duke relationship. And I've had
Sure,
the
yeah, they
pleasure of
did.
meeting 3 or 4 students, including I think a
Right.
couple that were in the medical field and all of that, that were from China, mainland
Yeah.
China. They were not
Right.
from Taiwan
Yeah.
and
Right.
things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Sure.
So, in
Right.
your proposal, the way that you're thinking about us dealing with China, we should not have these relationships with China. We should just like send
No,
them
I,
back
I,
to
I
China.
I didn't say we shouldn't have those relationships. We need to really examine the relationships that we have with China. In other words, we really need to examine what the people think in China. And this is just the feedback I'm getting, because I'm on the Chinese blogs every day. I'm on every day, Mark. And the thing is, the ones I see now, of course, this could be all fake. It could be just Russian trolls, which may be. But if this is really the way they think in China, and I don't know, I've never been to China, I've been to Russia, um, then we do need to put a caution flag on China. I'm sorry.
And
I
that
mean,
was one of the questions
So,
I was going to ask you. That you said you had never been to uh,
I've
China,
never
but
been to China, but I've
you've
been to
been to
Russia.
Russia,
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that did happen that I know for a fact. 'Cause
right.
I've had folks in my family and others that used to go on to these trips, even when we were in the middle of what some people might consider a Cold War with the countries I'm
Yeah,
here to name and everything. So I hear what you're saying about Russia and the Russian society and Russian culture and everything, but I am
sure.
not 100% convinced that even some Americans are not going to go on those cruise ships to St. Petersburg and other places after the war is over, based on what I have seen, where there was like entire trips to Cuba, and we were not supposed to have had the great relationship with Cuba under
Yeah.
Fidel Castro and under
No,
his
they're
brother and everything. But there were constant trips that people were taking to
there's
Cuba because they wanted
okay.
to see the Cuban
so,
society, and the
There's
same with China.
so I think
there's always
you know,
outliers. There are going to be
that's
one or two people who'll say, "Oh,
yeah,
I'm going to go to
that's
Russia anyway." But I'm just saying the vast majority of the Americans probably will not go on
well.
those.
Let's go back. Let's go back to China for just for a second. So,
Sure.
when was
Yeah.
China opened up? When did the U.S.-China relations start to
Okay.
melt?
The
What year was that?
They said it
What
was
year?
like in 1949, and
No, what? No, no, no.
and here's
1940.
what I'm just telling you what
No,
the Chinese say.
1972.
You're
So
thinking about 72, the
that's right. The
Nixon Mel,
Nixon trip
but
open. Now, why was that, Nick? Why did Nixon go to China? Why did Nixon open up relationships with China? Why did he do that?
because he
Especially
wanted
Nixon.
to counterbalance with Russia.
Exactly.
Right.
So what do
Do
we
I get an
not
A
need?
plus for that
We
one?
don't, we don't need that. The again, the Shanghai Cooperative
Sure.
Organization now includes Russia. We should we should have started to separate ourselves from China way back. Like in the night, when that thing started up, which was 1997, we should have said, you have a cooperative organization with Russia. We're going to start separating ourselves from you. We're going to start producing our own stuff in America. We're not going to worry
Yeah.
about Chinese stuff.
It
And if we'd
is.
have done that, we
It,
wouldn't be in this
yeah, right.
situation.
Yeah, right now we're fairly dependent on them, but also, Chris, let me tell you what I get the minute we say about, hey, we open relationships, we're trying to build. I get the opium wars thrown in my face, and we're like,
Of
what
course.
opium wars?
Well,
I
and I
said
get
everybody's
that.
been dead who's done
Yeah,
the opium
yeah.
wars, but this is the big thing for them. They said, well, the United States participated in the opium wars. The
Long
United
memory,
States,
right?
they have long memories,
Long
right?
memories.
And then they said, United States invaded Korea. The United States invaded
Nick,
Vietnam.
not only
I mean,
that,
they
not
slammed the
only
U.S.
that,
Yeah.
United States also has slavery. How about
Oh, they bring out slavery too.
They
Well,
do bring
let me tell you
Absolutely.
something. The thing is, Sasha, what they do is they whack the U.S. right, left, center
course.
Okay. And it's like, it's okay. But if you whack them, they go, oh, you shouldn't go after China. We're going to ban you. We're not going to talk to you anymore. I'm serious.
Yeah, of course.
It's a bloody one-way street. Now, the thing is, in our network, we beam into almost every country except China. I wonder why. North Korea. I wonder why. Iran. I get no reports. We even beam into Russia, Sasha. Okay. In other words, I get reports from Russia, people watching it. But for some reason, nobody from mainland China watches our show. I wonder why. Because what they do is they actually have strict government controls. My only portal is Understanding China right now through a Facebook group. And part of the reason why is Mark Zuckerberg married a Chinese lady. So he's actually built a lot of relationships with China, and Facebook is pretty heavy into China because of Mark's spouse being a Chinese lady. But I'm just saying, at least from our standpoint, that has and maybe Duke will open some bridges for us.
Yeah,
Mark.
we've had a couple of other guests
Right now,
they are trying to offer those
I would
opportunities
like.
to us.
I enjoy talking to them for this reason. They're
Yes.
very intelligent. They really know U.S. history. It's like better than Americans.
Very.
Okay, so the thing is, talking to them is really good, but you do get a complete different version from what the gospels that are preached in the West, and they call us the West. It's like we're like us in Europe all get along, and the United States is one monolith. Anybody who lives here knows that's not true, right, Mark? We have Democrats.
No, that's very true.
But that's not how they view us. They view us as
Speaking of
yeah.
mixes and everything, I was just curious. So that's what, if y'all heard music in the background, I was curious as to what was popular in Russia before the war and everything musically. And you were right, Sasha. A lot of it is very much kind of modern pop and everything. As a matter of fact, that's where they did a survey of using one of those lovely things, Statistica, that goes into these different countries and analyzes. And pop songs, 46% was what a lot of people were finding to be very popular, and rock and things of that nature. And not ironically, but apparently they're very big on bard songs, folk songs, and war songs. So that was up in the top category as well. I'm going like, okay, so they've got a lot of war songs that they can play while they're going into their battles and losing the battles as well. But yeah, I'm sitting there going like, that's it sounds like, whereas the old days classical and some of those forms were very much more popular than they are now in that whole area of Russia and everything.
Probably you're right. Maybe they are playing a lot of war songs, but I'm wondering how many people listen to this.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Well, you know what this
The
is
tune is nice, but the lyrics suck.
Yeah, you know what
thing.
this is also going to create, Sasha. Maybe we should start looking at investing in military corporations. In other words, companies that produce weapons. I'm serious.
Oh,
Because if I'm a country like Poland, okay, who's close to Russia right now, it ain't just taking off the oil, it's being potentially invaded, and realizing the West may do things, may not, who knows about NATO really. I would beef up my military. And after listening, usually I'm anti-military, and sorry, Chris, okay, I kind of grew up in the Vietnam War and had all these people coming back.
I understand. I totally
understand. So I was a little bit anti-military, but now things have changed. I go, wait a minute. Okay, now I'm after listening to the people in China and seeing what's going on in Russia, the United States really has to consider double downing on their military of offensive and defensive weapons.
Not just for themselves, for all NATO countries.
Poland, all NATO countries, and even Finland and Sweden, who are quote neutral. Man, if they're going to remain neutral, you better buy the best and biggest and baddest equipment.
Okay, here's Lockheed Martin, number one. Lockheed Martin.
We'll start buying stocks in Lockheed Martin.
Absolutely, right now.
Okay. Yes. Because after this, what's going to happen? Let's just get real, Sasha. These countries are going to start beefing up their military, because the thing is, if I was in Finland right now, I would not feel comfortable, because on a pretext, all Putin has to do is say, we're going to invade Finland because of what they did in World War II, or they have Nazis in Finland, or whatever. And so Finland, if you feel comfortable in Finland right now, you shouldn't. You're not a NATO country, and Russia doesn't give a rat's rear about borders, as we know. If you're in Sweden, You should not feel comfortable. Frankly, if you're anywhere in Europe, or even
Well,
Japan.
speaking of some place you don't want to feel comfortable about, how about a place that's not that far from us and everything, where apparently the one leading candidate is seen as being worse than Trump and everything, and the other one is under investigation, because that would be Brazil, because the UN Human Rights Committee said on earlier today, Thursday, that corruption proceedings against former Brazilian President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva that led to his imprisonment and prevented him from running again for office in 2008 violated due process. The findings followed a decision last year by Brazil's Supreme Court to annul his corruption conviction, which enabled him to launch a campaign for October's presidential election. And he's currently the frontrunner for that ballot ahead of the far-right incumbent, who a lot of people compare to Trump, Jair Bolsonaro. So apparently Brazil is heading into trouble no matter which one of them they get in all of that.
But by the way, Mark, Brazil is not on my vacation list. Okay, if I go to South America, I'll go to Paraguay or I'm going to go to Argentina. Brazil's way down on the list. I mean,
you want to go to Rio, man?
I won't even go to Venezuela. I might go to Colombia now, but not.
But Brazil has apparently come up with a program to, in which maybe we wanted to look at, because Brazil does have some housing issues, and Brazil's lower house approved on Wednesday a measure that makes permanent the 400 reals, which apparently is $80.58 Auxílio Brazil monthly welfare program for families in poverty situation, months ahead of the country's October presidential election. So apparently they're going to give them basically pocket change in order to hopefully get a couple of those votes and everything, because that may go a lot longer in terms of spending than it does here. Because I can tell you that that's not going that far in the United States and all.
They ought to go fight for Russia, because they get what, 300 or 3,000 bucks.
Speaking of fight for Russia, we got to be careful on Hungary being on the list. I don't know if you saw their leader, whoever it is, crazy man in Hungary. Hungary was on my list because I want to go to Budapest.
Yeah, Hungary was on the list. I just have just one other. I have one other.
Nick, you must love goulash, right?
What? Yeah, but I have one more for everybody to come back to one of Shaquille's favorite topics as well, because apparently, are you ready for this, Chris and everything? Because apparently, not only are we dealing with race, as you like to call it, and everything, but we're dealing with race and sports in Brazil and everything, because apparently Pelé, that famous soccer player, Ronaldo, Neymar, Brazil has a long list of legendary African-American and mixed-race football stars, but it is now coming up that the coach's bench remains a largely white domain. So now they are saying that even in Brazil and its football, which is very popular, I know I root for them sometimes, that they need more coaches of African-American descent, because they got tons of players that are doing well that are of African-American or mixed. The same argument that has happened here in the U.S.
Okay, I love soccer, and especially world championships. And what impresses me every time when I'm watching, every 4 years, is, the Brazil team is a very strong team. It's contender almost in any championship.
Every year.
Yeah.
And so is Argentina.
Yes,
but Brazil team is composed 99% of colored players. They are all colored, either
people of color,
black or colored, but definitely there are hardly any white player. Very seldom, once in a while. Whereas Argentina, they're all white players. Very seldom there could be one colored, but mostly white. So there's such an enormous difference between Argentine composition of people and Brazil. Now, if you want to go to Brazil, the Rio de Janeiro, obviously Christ the Redeemer on the Corcovado Mountain.
That's right.
One.
Worst thing.
As the sport venue, as a stadium, Maracana, which seats 200,000 people.
Wow.
Okay. How about that? And that's not enough. The Copacabana Beach is a very interesting option to spend a few hours. Yeah. I spent 3 days on that cruise ship. I was fortunate that they stayed 3 days in Rio de Janeiro, because on the first day that we arrived, there was an opening of the Carnival, Brazilian Carnival, in February every year. And this is absolutely spectacular, nothing to be compared with. So I would definitely, I wouldn't miss that. But that's about it. The Buenos Aires is a dream place, really. It's so enticing, the architecture. They call it South American Paris.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
Well, actually, right now, number one on my
Great.
list, Sasha, I don't know if you've been there, is to go to Spain, Madrid,
Oh yeah, Spain. And
Barcelona.
Spain's
Yeah,
actually got some
sure.
pretty
Yeah,
good
Spain is.
soccer as well.
Do you like Spain, Sasha? Have you been there?
I like Italy more than
Really?
anything
Yeah.
else. No,
Part of
I've
the
been in Spain a few times, but Nick,
yeah.
for some reason, I feel in Italy, I feel like in my own country.
Oh yeah,
Really,
I love Italy, but I would go there
Spain
a
is
lot.
something different. It's a little
Yeah.
bit more distant, but it's a beautiful country. It's,
Yeah.
I
Well,
was many
the
times.
reason why it's further away from Russia than Italy, number one, and then I'm going to take my iodine pills just in case something happens,
Mhm.
like kaboom, and I'm in Spain. So the thing is, in case Putin decides to pull the lever or something like that,
He's not gonna believe it.
you know. Well, he keeps talking about, if we lose the war, we're going to have to go in a nuclear holocaust, everybody. Really?
Yesterday. I was listening to a very
Oh, good luck.
interesting program on YouTube. It was interview with Natalia Zubarevich. She's a
Yeah.
Russian scientist, history, economics, an incredibly smart woman, and she was explaining how Russian cities are deteriorating. The people are moving out; they will never come back.
Yeah.
So they're mostly older people, and
Yeah,
it's
right. There's a lot of older people
and
there.
so on. And then, so the interviewer asked her, "Okay, is it just Russian phenomena? Why, if you take a country like Italy, for example, why cities are not dying in Italy but dying in Russia?"
Mhm.
Say it's geography, my young man. It's
Mhm.
geography where Italy, on a relatively small territory, has 60 or so million people, and Russia, which is probably 75 times bigger,
Oh,
has
geez.
140 million people, which is about two and a half times more. But its territory, 75
It's
times
huge. Yeah,
more.
it's huge. And
So
it's cold.
cities are on a great distance from each other.
Yeah.
They are not even connected. It's, for example, from one city to go to another city, which is say 200 kilometers away. So here it's an hour and a half trip, and you're there. In Russia, you have to spend the day. You
Yeah,
have to wait for a bus, and the bus will go 25 kilometers an hour, so it will spend 5 hours just to get there, plus stops and so on. It's a complete disaster of economy in Russia. And that interview was before the Ukrainian war. So she was
Yeah,
talking
well,
about peaceful time, and she was saying about all kind of fiscal irregularities or atrocities, any way you want to call it, and it's just not sustainable economically, even
yeah.
without war.
No.
Now with the war,
Oh,
has
yeah,
to
right.
go. That place has to be just destroyed. By the way, you mentioned that our program people in Russia are listening. My greetings to
Yeah,
my
I don't know.
dear people in Russia. So those who are listening to our programs, you are okay. You are our
Yeah,
friend.
I don't know
Those who
how
don't
we got
listen
it.
to us, they all have to be destroyed.
Right.
Thank you.
There we go. Oh,
Thank you.
there's one more issue I want to bring up because you brought on the thing before. It's student loan crisis in the United
yes,
States.
yes.
Okay, there is a solution, Mark. It's really simple. And usually Occam's razor, which I'm sure that Chris appreciates, which is the simplest solution,
Is
is usually
usually
the
the best.
best.
Oh, that's
Okay.
not the
Right.
exact
It's
quote.
not
Yeah,
exactly, but
that's
the thing
fine.
is, it's kind of like the idea.
Necessity of
Right.
redundancy, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
right. So
Yeah,
you want to do is the simplest.
yeah.
And here's what you do. The student loan crisis is actually created by the Bankruptcy Abuse Consumer Protection Act in 2005, a really simple law that said you can't discharge student loans in bankruptcy. All you do, Mark, is do this: say you can discharge student loans in bankruptcy, and you know what'll happen. The people that are over their heads that should have never had the money lent to due to predatory lending will go to file Chapter 7, liquidate the loans, or do an 11, reorganize their debt, and it's all gone. And so all you have to do is repeal that bad law that was placed in effect in 2005. Other than that, all the other stuff we're doing is garbage. Oh, we're going to do forgiveness of everybody. There's some people I went to school with at University of Miami. They were from very wealthy families taking out student loans because of the low interest rate. And you know what they did? They just paid it back when they were done. So why forgive them? That's ridiculous. These people are worth $100 million. Why would you want to forgive their student loans when they had all intention to pay it back? Instead, we have a system that's designed for years here called the bankruptcy courts. If somebody believes the student loans are too heavy because of predatory lending, you run to the bankruptcy court, file bankruptcy, poof, student loan's gone. If you don't want to do that, you just pay the student loans because you go, hey, it was a good deal anyway for me and the lender. And just eliminate that bad law in 2005. Now, none of the Republicans or Democrats.
No, that's not happening. But
there's more to it than that, Nick.
And I want to get to more of it, Chris,
you're right.
and everything.
Yeah,
but I've got
because
another
they're all
one
being
for you
paid
as
off
well
by the
when we
banking
get to that
industry,
and
Mark.
everything. Because I got another one that I think
They're
you'll
all
love
being paid
and everything
off by
because it
the
comes to
banking
something that
adjustable. That's the problem.
yeah, but I want to get to something else that I think that y'all will love because you brought it up a couple of times, and apparently President Biden brought it up in a conversation with the Chinese. But everything, because I know that on this show and on other shows, we've had discussions about what is better, and I think even Steve has brought up a couple of times because apparently President Biden has said several times that we are put in a global battle with democracy against autocrats and things of that nature. And apparently in Seattle last week, Biden described a phone conversation he had with Xi Jinping in which the Chinese leader argued that democracy doesn't work anymore. Among other things, Xi said democracy requires consensus, kind of like what you're talking about, Dick.
Right.
And mustard a consensus takes too long in a fast-moving world. Only autocracies are equipped to meet the extraordinary challenge of modern times. Biden, as he does every time he tells the story, dismissed the idea that democracy is passe or unworkable. But in this article I was reading, it was actually an editorial, there were some people that are actually wondering, does he not have a point? That maybe we are at that point where democracy is
we're not a democracy, first of all. We're a representative republic. We've never been a democracy, and people use it like they know what they're talking about. We're not a democracy. We're a representative republic, and that's why it takes forever. It's like pushing a rope. You're trying to figure out laws, you're trying to do stuff. It takes for freaking ever because you got, this divisiveness, the divisiveness is going on about that. I mean, but the bottom line of this whole thing is that I would never give up our form of government for any other form of government. I like it. I think it's a good form of government if applied correctly and if you get away from animosity to the point where you're just calling people names. I mean, there have been times in our history in the United States where literally people were beating each other in the chambers of Congress. I mean, freaking canes were coming out and they were beating each other. I thought, okay, we've gotten kind of away from that. Maybe there's verbal beatings, but there's no physical beatings within the Chamber of Commerce. So that's good. So we're moving towards a more civilized nature. But man, I'll tell you, this divisiveness, this name calling without compromise. I mean, if I were running, I'd call myself Compromise Chris. I would try to find a center. There is a center. There's a center between every single argument that they've ever brought up, ever. And you know something? And unfortunately, other than that, there's invasion. I mean, this is what happens. If you don't find a common ground, you're going to be like Putin. There's no common ground with me. I'm going to invade. And I hate to say it, and let me tell you, I voted for the guy twice, but Trump is out there, and he is just shoving that wedge between people, and he loves to do it, and it's just splitting this area apart. And the Republican Party, of which I'm a member, I can't see us staying together. I can't see the Republican Party because there are people that are four square behind Trump. And I'm not four square behind Trump. Let me put that out there. I'm not four square behind Trump. I voted for the guy twice because I didn't want Biden in there. I voted for him the first time because I saw him a better option than Hillary Clinton. I liked what he did during those 4 years. Yeah, he had a big mouth and a tweet thing that I felt like saying, just take those two things away from him, shut his mouth and stop his tweeting, and he would have been okay. But it's a situation where now he's splitting the party, man.
But Xi Jinping actually has
okay. Hold on a second, because I want to get to another issue. Because apparently Madison Cawthorn, who is running here in North
Oh,
Carolina and everything, was caught bringing a loaded gun
yeah, I know.
to his plane and all
That guy.
along those lines. So, what were you thinking about bringing a loaded gun onto the
Yeah.
plane?
Dude,
When you,
he's a piece of work. I mean, the thing is he really in Congress? Did somebody actually vote for this guy?
Yeah,
Or-
not just voted for him, but he won big time.
I mean,
I mean,
it really.
it's
I
just-
mean, the guy's got some mental issues and probably needs to spend some time in a mental hospital and get rehabilitated. But let's go back to the democracy republic versus Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, I believe, is right, and a well-oiled autocracy will do better than a not so well-oiled democracy. And the thing is, in the United States, even though we say, "Oh, we got a republic form of government," or we got, and they misuse it, like Chris says, we're a democracy and we're not. We're a republic. Okay, and it's much better than an autocracy. We actually do have autocracies all over the United States. Mark, they're called corporations.
Yep.
And the corporations,
Yep.
and if you don't believe me, go talk to Elon Musk or go work for a big company.
Yeah.
No,
Google.
I mean, that was
Google.
the entire conversation.
Hey, Chris, when you were in
That
the
was the
military,
entire conversation
when you're-
around Occupy. When
when you're in
Occupy
the
was going
military,
on, it was
did-
the whole
did
conversation
you
around
say-
corporations as
Yeah.
people. That was part of their
When you're
whole
in the
notion
military,
was
did you
that
say,
corporations are being
let's
treated
vote
as
on
people.
whether or not we're going to go to war.
Yeah.
Chris, did you
Well,
say let's vote
we
on,
we were told the same thing as in Crimson Tide, right?
Yeah.
We're there to protect democracy, not to practice it.
Yeah,
That's
there we
it.
go. Right, that's what I'm saying.
That was it. It was, and I was told that. I was actually told
Yeah,
that.
right.
at
No,
one point.
well, you can imagine you talk
We're
to
not
your
gonna vote on anything,
generals
Chris.
and say, you talk to your generals and say, I disagree. I don't think we should do that. Let's go bring some more lieutenant colonels in and override what you just said. Is that how it works in the military,
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah.
No.
Oh yeah, every day.
Every
Yeah,
day.
every day. Yeah,
You know,
sure.
come on.
Every day.
So the
Yep.
thing is, to
Nah.
be efficient, you have to have that type of autocracy. So when Xi Jinping said that, which by the way, I believe they actually have a great leader in Xi Jinping, because first of all, how are you going to manage 1.6 billion people and not have as much confrontation as they do? So he does a good job managing 1.6 billion. And then he's right on an autocracy. It is more efficient than a democracy or even a republic form of government. The real problem is having the right leader. When you get
Right.
a clown like Putin in, who just lies, cheat, and steal throughout his whole career, you got the wrong guy. All right. To my knowledge, Xi Jinping doesn't do that stuff. He's actually a respected, leader as much as a leader could be. And so you have a good leader. So if you got a good leader, you want to keep him.
Well,
If
you
you
have
got a
to.
bad leader, you got to get rid of him.
So here's
Well, I mean,
something. Let me throw this out to you. There's Ukraine. When you say Ukraine, what do you think of in the way of leadership? Right, Zelensky. Boom. You don't think of the mayors of the towns which are there. You don't think of the governors. You don't think of anything. You think of Zelensky, right? You might let's call Zelensky an autocrat. Let's just call him that. Let's say Zelensky is an autocrat at this point in time. He's the leader. He's the one who's. But what does he do that everyone in Ukraine loves? One is he's in the battle. That's number one. He's right out front in the battle. He's in Kyiv and he's sitting there saying, "Come get me. I'm here. Screw you." Right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
number
No,
one. So he's
amazing.
putting that up. Number two is he really does, at least I think he does, from the way he talks and the way he speaks. He cares about Ukraine and he
Right.
cares about the people.
Sure.
If you have an autocrat like that, if you have somebody
Yeah,
who
you got a
says,
good autocrat.
then all of a sudden it's like people will form behind him. Now, once this crisis is over, once it's done, which it will be done, sooner than later, then all of a sudden now you got the Ukrainians sitting there saying, well, Zelensky was good, but we really like we're going to get back to democracy and do
No, I
whatever
mean,
we need to
isn't
do,
part of
you
the
know?
problem? This is a global problem. Isn't part of the problem that we have become, and I know Petraeus made that comment about the TikTok war and everything, but haven't we become somewhat of a kind of society and a global society where the people that are in charge are one of two groups? They're either from the country's military. There's a lot of people that are coming out of the military ranks. They're either that or they're career politicians or they're celebrities. I'm thinking that, as a matter of fact, on Saturday, I'll be working someplace else, so I probably won't go to it. But we got Clay Aiken's running when he's doing a campaign over here, and he's bringing Ruben Stu.
Our political system just generally is broken for that reason. People are voting for people based on name recognition
Exactly.
based on the party affiliation or
Exactly.
by Trump endorsements, and it's all about money. So if
Right.
they receive money and they can get their name out there, because there's no way in a 30-second commercial you can have a really thorough discussion of the issues.
Show the
And
book,
that's
Nick.
and that's what I'm that's
Show
why I
the
was
book.
mentioning
Show
about
the book.
Clay
Yeah,
Aikens, because I mean
Show the
Clay
book.
Aikens is coming out and he's bringing
Bring up your
his
book,
American
Nick.
Idol's friends to Durham to help with the campaign, and of course that's going to probably
Yeah.
sway some
So,
votes.
so
Yeah.
what you got, frankly, you got dumb people electing dumber people. So you have Dumb and Dumber running the United States of America. And when Dumb and Dumber, I don't know if you saw that movie, great movie. We got Dumb and Dumber running the United States of America. Guys like Xi Jinping can clean up. You know, I mean, it's just the way it is. You know, so it's very sad that our political, and this is where David Walker was right. We need to get back to having a civics course or a
Oh, totally.
course on politics, so that people, when they vote, can actually, rather than listen to jingles on TV and make their decision, or make their decision based on party affiliation. These are very low
Well,
information.
sometimes sometimes the jingles
Everybody
actually
needs,
work, but
every
it is
student
actually sometimes the jingles
needs to
actually work, but it
memorize
comes back to one of your
the
favorite.
preamble of the Constitution. The
Yeah, but it
preamble
comes
of the
back to one of
Constitution.
your
Or even
favorite
read it. They don't even read
The
whipping
preamble.
points and all of that. It
Yeah.
comes
Yep.
back to one of your favorite whipping boys, Nick, and everything. Because one of their jingles that they did all the time that I used to love when I was a kid, and I even loved it as a young adult and everything, was they did do things around politics, and that was like
Yeah.
the whole PBS Schoolhouse
Yeah.
Rock kind of thing and
Yeah,
everything
and
when they were doing.
well, we need to get our education system where people have courses on like civics and basic constitutional and legal issues, because people are voting people on jingles like "Build That Better" or
Right.
"Make America Great Again." That's not a reason to ever vote for a candidate, or they're a Democrat, so I'm gonna vote for them, or they're a Republican, I'm
We're going
gonna
to
vote for
stop
them.
inflation now with
Yeah,
this
stop.
candidate.
Yeah, whip inflation
break.
now. Stop. Yeah, I mean, so what happens? We have very low information
Yes.
receivers who are voting for people that are low information people, and so you get Dumb and Dumber sitting in the U.S. Congress making decisions for the world's largest economy. No wonder why I'm in deep trouble. Okay, and then here in North Carolina, for people who don't know, there's a guy named Ted Budd or Ed Budd, whatever his name is.
Ted Budd.
Okay, whatever his name is. Yeah, and he goes, "I'm not even going to the debates," and he doesn't have to. He's right not to go. He's leading by double digits. What did he do? He got endorsed by Trump. What else did he do?
Yep.
Nothing. What's his political positions? No one has a clue. Okay, and
Guns.
guns. Yeah, I think he does.
He owns a gun shop.
Okay, he does the traditional thing. I love guns. I hate abortions, and make America great again, or something like that. That's not a reason ever to vote for a candidate. We have some hard issues in the United States, Mark. We've discussed them here. Average person in the United States, 70% can't get a hold of $1,000 in case of emergency. Why isn't that front and center? Student loans, 1.5 trillion. Why isn't that front and center? We're not going to discuss that. And Social Security is going to run out of money in 2026. In 2034, and Medicare goes broke in 2026. Why isn't that discussed? Because we don't discuss the hard issues. We discuss the soft issues. And with that, we're going to have to go. I know Mark has already left because we're at the hour. Yeah, because he's got something else going on. We'll see you tomorrow on the World Edition. And I know how to end this. I can press buttons.